I found a few good books of poems and novels and whatever else that I want to talk about. First one here is called The Last Nostalgia. It's poems by Bolton. He's a poet from America, the South. He was born in Kentucky. He was born in 1961 and he died in 1990 of suicide. And this was put out, I think, a couple of years after he died. And it's extremely good poetry. I just found it today, but I've read a decent amount of the book, and one of my favorite ones is one of the first ones I found. And I'll just read it here. It's called Fathers and Sons. In my father's recurring dream, his life's humiliations take on the form of a procession of slow-drawn, open boxcars. A hideous old man hangs out by one arm from each of them, his blackened face leering. It's late winter as he tells me this. We're sitting on the back porch, sipping beers, watching the dusk play itself out, and a light show through the woods, shocked yellows and reds blazing the leaf rot, where the neighbor's son lay down and shot himself last October. The note stuffed in his shirt pocket. Pretty place to die. They've moved away now, their empty house and up for sale, or their house empty and up for sale. A train sounds in the distance, pure sound. Its fading winds and shutters dragging off what's left of the light, while my breath and the stars, my breath rises to meet, become visible against the dark. And this evening I understand what little consolation stars are, how their shimmering is out of reach as the smooth stones or the small fish flashing in a frozen-over stream, and how my father, staring up at them, can only think how alone he is out here. Among these wasted fields, the woods are reclaiming year by year. It's terrible, just terrible, he says, meaning his dream. It goes on forever, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. And we can't help each other, he and I. We've perfected our obsessions and traveled too far into ourselves, like the mystic made ashes by his own imploding light. And as a matter of fact, this may be some of the best poetry I've found, contemporary poetry, like published after the 1960s. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate he didn't make it. Another one I found that I couldn't believe I did was one that I was looking at Amazon. I was like, oh shoot, should I buy stuff or should I not? And I ended up holding myself back and not doing it. But then today I went to the bookstore, and lo and behold, I found one of the books I would have bought, and for cheaper than I would have bought it for. So this is Nadia by Breton. And I mainly wanted this, I think partially because Robert Coates, his Eater of Darkness, was considered a surrealist novel, and also because I'm just interested in that time period. I want to know everything about the modernist era, so Breton is one of the biggest in France, and a lot of his stuff isn't published, like Les Champs Magnétiques. It's like $80 to buy. I mean, doesn't that mean someone needs to reprint it? But I understand the trouble with that. But yeah, surely Grove has a couple dollars laying around somewhere. But anyway, about this book, it's a surrealist romance published in 1928. Apparently the first third doesn't have anything to do with the romance or the plot, and then the rest, he talks to this woman, and then they get separated because she's put in an asylum or something, and I don't know much about it, but it seemed interesting, and I'll probably read it pretty soon. And thirdly, the second book I bought is called The Song of Everlasting Sorrow by Wang Anyi. And this is a Chinese book published in 1995. It's from, the title is from a Tang Ballad by Bai Juyi, who's one of my favorite poets of the Tang Dynasty in the 800s or 700s, 8th century. And what got me first interested in this, I heard of this book like 2.5 years ago, and it was by this this reviewer on Goodreads named Steven. He's like some 80-year-old guy who just retired from, I think, a job in education or something. But anyway, he reads a lot of like Chinese literature, a lot of French language literature, and then just a lot of literary fiction in English. And this is one of the ones that he reviewed that he said was really good. And another reason I noticed this was really good is the Weatherhead books on Asia. It's a translation from Columbia University, which another one I have from them is the Sing Song Girls of Shanghai, which is just up there on my bookshelf. So, and not to mention it was only $5 for this book, for pretty much perfect condition. So I have a couple people on Instagram that I follow who are Chinese, and they take these amazing pictures of contemporary China, like of the skyscrapers and the amazing like thoroughfares at night with all the neon signs, and you know, just like a whole bunch of interesting people. And I would absolutely love if China went through some sort of literary renaissance and they were translated into English. I would love that so much. I want to read the Chinese Ulysses of the 21st century so bad. If I found that, it would be, I'd probably have a stroke or something, or, you know, develop epilepsy. But, you know, speaking of the cities, I got an anthology of poems of Metropolitan Modernity, which is a collection of like 500 poems from 1910 to 1939. It's a huge book. Compare it to my head. It's bigger than my head. And I found this in the bookstore that's by my house. They have pretty good books, but I haven't been there in a little while. And this collection was apparently, the idea came from Ivan Goll, who was an avant-garde German poet, kind of in the same circles as Paul Celan. And apparently he didn't get this finished by the time he died, so these other two guys, Jed Rasula and Tim Conley, started it up again. And just to give you an idea of the people who are in this, you have Valerie Larbeau, Yaroslav Seifert, Fernando Pessoa, Marianne Moore, Walter Benjamin, Louis Aragon. There's Marinetti, Virginia Woolf, W.H. Auden, Jean Cocteau, Ezra Pound, Attila Yosef, Pierre Reverdy, Mayakovsky, Mina Loy, Mary Butt, Apollinaire, Philippe Soupeau, Maxwell Bodenheim, Jules Romain, Andre Bailey, Musil. So I think that gives a pretty good idea of who's in here. They have John Gould Fletcher and Conrad Aiken. So I don't know many of these like international poets, but I can tell by their selection of English language poets. If they know John Gould Fletcher and Conrad Aiken, they probably know quite a lot about the others. So that's pretty much how I took my recommendation. And let's see if I can find a good example of some interesting things. Oh yeah, they have Vallejo in here. Let's see, because there's some really interesting style, what they include in here. Let's see, they include like a poem like that. But yeah, this is pretty much, I'll probably make another video about this book by itself, because it's, if anyone here that watches my videos is interested in modernism, this book would be, you would love it. You'd absolutely love this book. So, yeah. If you have any questions about any of these, I can try to answer them. I've only read a decent amount of both books of poems. I haven't read Nadia yet, or the Song of Everlasting Sorrow, but yeah. I'll probably end up making a longer video about each of the poem books and then maybe the other novels. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Death is a gang boss.